Oh boy. Holy cow, that's so weird. Whoa. Whoa. Oh, I figured it out. Okay, hold on. I know what the problem is. I wasn't wearing my gloves. Like, I'm struggling at 30 kph to keep this balanced and center, whereas I can hobble along, actually going forward at like 5 without having this much difficulty balancing. So the only variable that's changed is whether I'm going forward or not.
Not too low. I was about to say it's not too bad.
We'll see.
I do not like this whatsoever. I will crash.
No.
Bike rollers are hard. They seem more difficult than they should be. I mean, I've been riding bikes for as long as I can remember, and just saw some clips of other experienced riders struggling with rollers as well. I also know that bikes, they can ride themselves. Watch as I get my bike up to speed and give it a whack. You can see it self-corrects and would have kept going if not for that wall. I decided to do some science to try to figure out why. I thought it had a lot to do with the forward momentum you normally have while riding. But how do you test that? I didn't want to have the human factor as something that could confuse the results. After all, humans can make a stationary bike balance. I can't. They can also balance on one wheel. I can't. I decided that I could use my new rollers to simulate the ground motion without me on the bike. The bike and the speed will stay the same, and I'll be comparing to the riderless self-correcting that you saw a moment ago. The only thing that will change is whether the bike is actually moving forward or not. The ability of the bike to self-correct is my criteria result I'm looking for. I picked up a free used vacuum from Kijiji to get its electric motor out. The plan was to use the motor to drive the rollers instead of me driving the rollers by pedaling. So this outer part does not spin, but boy does that take off like a shot. I needed to get the impeller off the end of the motor shaft to reduce both the noise and especially the momentum. This ended up being a lot harder than I expected, mostly because it was being held on with a reverse thread nut. This time I strapped it to a 2x4 and 2x6 to keep it from kicking, and to start thinking about how to attach it to the rollers later on. I also wanted the belt from the vacuum head to connect the motor to the rollers. Well, I think I found your problem, lady. Maybe that's why it wasn't working so good. The crazy full tilt screaming speed of the motor wasn't going to work for me without gears, but I'm poor and gears cost extra. So I spent today learning about how universal, and lots of other kinds, of motors work, and built a controller using a dimmer switch, along with a backup, holy crap, off switch. I still needed a way to plug it in, so I reattached the original vacuum cable to the motor. This ended up giving me much finer speed control than I could have hoped for. Well, that's way slower. After initially installing the motor on the right side of the rollers, which ended up going backwards, I got it installed on the left side and started doing my tests. I very quickly realized that 1, my front rim is dented and damaged, and 2, bikes aren't balanced. It always wanted to pull off to the right because of the weight of the cassettes, chain derailleurs, etc. I solved that by taking my lead crafting materials and electrical taping them to the left side of my bike. This didn't come out to quite perfectly balancing it, but it certainly got good enough that it no longer wanted to take off to the right side. Setup here. Can I demonstrate it enough that I could send it to someone who, with more funding and resources, okay, we're down at 14, could do a better job of it. Yeah, then we're right heavy again, so I'm not going to get it perfect. That's straight, no hands. Give it a wobble. That's too much wobble. We're at 16 and a half, 17. Give it a bit of a wobble, and it does self-correct. It drifts after, but that's not an indicator of is it self-correcting. That's an indicator of balance. The question is, can it self-correct? And it can't over perturbations that big. We're at 17.6 right now. But there it just did. Like, aside from being off balance, that's pretty well maintained. And that's even down in the low 17s. And that right there, that was self-correction. So the conclusion I have is basically, I'm not really sure. It's not an absolute critical factor that you have forward momentum to have a bike self-correcting. But the other thing that I noticed is if you watch again the part where I hit the bike while I'm running beside it, I hit it with a lot more force and it corrects a lot faster than when I have it indoors and I'm just kind of trying to balance it and give it little taps. I also feel like you could get the bike to self-correct with the forward momentum at a lower speed than I was able to get it to correct here. But unfortunately, I can't give a definite conclusion as I don't have the resources to pursue this to the detail that I would like to. I would want the rollers to be much wider so that when it veers off to the side, while it's self-correcting, it doesn't end up only having 6 inches of space to work with. You would also need cameras with higher shutter speed to get better detail in the time it takes to do the self-correction. I would need a larger area to be able to run beside the bike to get it up to speed at the forward momentum and see how long it takes for it to self-correct. I would also want to see what the minimum speed for self-correction with the forward momentum is and see if I can duplicate that without the forward momentum. And I have a suspicion that while the bike can self-correct on the rollers, I don't think it would be able to self-correct at as low a speed. It was really neat to be able to see a bike kind of just standing up hovering in one spot. I would really like to see someone come along and do this with better equipment, more manpower, more controls, and see if we can nail down this forward momentum question once and for all.